Most seed backup phrases suck. Here's why. Imagine this. You woke up early and went to work. After a long day, you finally get back home and you see fire trucks are outside of your building. You try to get the elevator, but it was turned off. So you run up the stairs as fast as you can and realize that the door to your apartment has been smashed open. You go straight for your drawer, the most important place where you kept all your paper seed phrases. But in shock and horror, you realize that they were all burnt to a crisp, and there are no letters or numbers that can be made out at all. Your crypto is lost, forever stuck in your wallet. But then you remember you just bought a metal backup and you wrote your seed phrases down on it. But again, this was also destroyed. How could it be? Because the company promised me that it could last through a fire, through corrosion, amongst other things. This can't be possible. So along with putting your crypto on an exchange and them going bankrupt, this is probably everyone's worst crypto nightmare. Most users don't take seed backups seriously, but they really should, because you never know what could happen in the future. There's so many seed phrase backup options out there available to us. So how do we make sure that the one we're buying is good enough to store our seed phrase through all conditions? So let's go through and discuss the best and safest option for you. The first option here is good old pen and paper. And as we discussed, paper is vulnerable to fire, water, acid, corrosion, any sort of element will destroy paper, which makes it probably the worst choice we could have. It makes it even worse that this is what we're given by most hardware wallet companies to make us think this is the best way to store our crypto, which is not true at all. And if you do write your seed phrase on a piece of paper, you should burn it after you transcribe it onto something safer. Now, keeping on this trend, the next option would be something like the Shield Folio, which is waterproof, it's tear resistant, and can be buried. And the benefit here is that it has many pages where you can put tons of seed phrases in it. You can also make your writing glow in the dark, which is a really cool feature to hide your seed phrase. Now, the only real problem with Shield Folio is that fire is super effective. You need to get a fireproof safe in order to store this safely. Not everyone can afford this kind of safe. And if it wasn't for this, it would literally be the perfect option. Now that we know that fire is a big problem when it comes to storing seed phrases, many companies have opted to make metal seed backups. There's 6 main types of metal seed backups. The first is engrave, which is handwritten with an electric Dremel. Next is stamp, which we use metal stamps with a hammer to hit the letters into the metal. Next is etch, scratching with a sharp tip. Then we have punch, where you use a hammer and punch to make deep holes into the metal. Next is stack, putting pre-made letters onto a rod. And finally tile, putting pre-made letters onto a metal holder. Now, I didn't do any of this research myself, but I found someone way smarter than me who has. Luckily for us, a guy named Jameson Lopp did tests and he found which types were better and which weren't. A shout out to Jeremy DeFi Dance for his great explanation of Jameson Lopp's tests. So what Lopp did was he put it through 3 different main stress tests. The first one was heat, where he basically simulated a house fire to see if it would withstand this type of stress. The next was corrosion to see if the metal corroded, could you still make out the letters and numbers on the plate? And the last was crush, where he took a hydraulic press and he saw if it could withstand and if the bending would still make the letters legible. Now he's given the results of all of these backups, and of everything tested, tile performed the worst by far. The most effective metal backups were punch and stamp types. He had a few main takeaways at the bottom of his blog, and first was that simple is better. So more pieces equals more chance of failure, which makes sense because it's easy to lose pieces or for the pieces to break off if it's not a firm piece of metal. Secondly, he suggested that the best bang for your buck are single punch plates with grids. So before you buy one of these metal backups, if this is the option for you, I would highly suggest you look at Jameson's test for the specific wallet you want to buy. All the info is laid out in this link that I'm posting below in the description. So this brings us to another point that although metal can protect us from most situations here, they are extremely expensive. Prices can range anywhere from $20 to $400 US. And remember, a lot of times this is only for one seed backup. Just one. For example, CryptoTag's Thor is $350 US, and their cheaper option, Zeus, is $130. Another thing to point out here is that when you are deciding on a seed backup, you don't want it to be obvious. But for example, CryptoTag puts their big logo with the words crypto on the outside. Does this not make it really obvious that this is a seed backup and that it should be stolen to have a lot of funds on it? I mean, it just seems a bit strange to me that you would want to advertise what that product is. So there are some cheaper options on this list, such as Bit HD Frozen Armor. It's only $30, but it failed every single test. Remember that something being cheaper doesn't always make it bad, just as something being expensive doesn't always make it good. So make sure to check out Jameson's list again, and that all of the tests check out and that your crypto will be safe. To be clear, there's no perfect options when it comes to seed phrase backups, but there are 2 DIY options that I want to try, and these videos will be coming soon. The most interesting one to me is this Seifu Ninja DIY. The estimated cost of 3 seed backups for this method is $27 US. So what you do is you stamp letters onto washers. It's very cheap and decent protection. The items you need are screws, nuts, washers, a hammer, metal stamps, and an anvil. Washers are cheap and easy to create multiple seeds. Mr. MX on YouTube took this a step further, and he changed the materials and the size to make it look really sleek and clean. Check out his video for more info. The second DIY option to try is Bulletproof Bitcoin, and it averages about $130 US for 3 seed backups. What you do is stamp letters onto a titanium plate. Now it's $25 per slab, but you could probably find it cheaper somewhere else, just making sure that the materials are correct. The items you need is a titanium plate, a hammer, metal stamps, and an anvil. It's not as cheap as the other option, but for those who don't trust washers, this is a great option too. So another downside to washers is that they could become loose. And this is something that we discussed before, is that if you have more pieces, it's more points of failure, and that's probably a bad thing in some ways. This is why a metal slab could have an advantage here. But for some reason, if you did want to destroy your seed phrase in the future, I'm not sure why, because you could just take all your crypto out, but if you did, you could easily discard washers instead of a metal slab. So I hope you find a good seed backup option, and this video helped to clarify this for you. Be sure to check out this recent video I have on Shield Folio, and I have another one coming as well. And remember to trust yourself, store yourself, and verify yourself. Stay safe out there.